Okay, looks like maybe we're live here. Um, Hi, it's me, Jared Garrett again. I am here to read from Usurper, which is book two. Book two. Look, it says book two down there. Two. In my series called The Guide and the Sword, which is actually the first of a multi-series series. It's the first of a sequence called The Ascension, the Guardian Ascension, excuse me. What is wrong with me? What's up, James? James is here for some blades. Okay, so what am I doing down here with my hands? Well, it's very simple. My sleeve is really riding up on my giant bicep. Okay, so I pulled out my first pocket knife, first pocket knife, and found it really covered in green. See, look, I can lift my arm now. It's pretty cool. And some green stuff, oxidation or something. In any case, so here, check this out. So, not the gun's nice, James. This is a Schrade USA 1250T. The model is called Old Timer. I believe my mother gave me this for Christmas in, oh boy, that would have been in 1990. It was 1990. What's up, Byron? So 1990 or 1989 at the latest. So I started, hey Darcy, I started collecting knives then because I always wanted to collect knives and I was really into stuff like this. So look how dirty that is. It's bad news. So it looks like I need to get some oil on that thing and polish it clean with some wool, maybe some other chemicals. I don't know. That's really not sharp at all. Oh. Yeah, it's a teeny bit sharp, not that sharp. I didn't cut myself, don't worry. I'm not going to get tetanus from my own knife. So that's my very first knife that I ever had. It's a lock blade. It's giant, as you can see. I'd carry this thing around in my pocket all the time. I may have been breaking laws. Yeah, it's a knife from beyond the cabin. This knife is not from beyond the cabin. So that's the very first knife I owned, and I would sharpen it diligently. I actually still have the whetstones from back in those days. I got that knife and a couple of other, and a couple of accoutrements, you could say. A couple of whetstones of different grades and things like that. I got some oil that I threw away only a few years ago because it was nasty. Also, that's not a knife. So I also got this knife, not at the same time. I got this knife when I was 17 or 18. I was out of the cult. I was probably either still attending high school or had recently finished high school, so I was 18. And attending Society for Creative Anachronism events. I already showed you the bow thing. Here, I'm going to move. See, you see that right there? Right there. There you go. That's funny. That thing on the wall under the Firefly near Gollum and Minas Tirith. That's my badge that I would carry around. So I got this dagger at the Society for Creative Anachronism as well. This is rad. It's from Japan. It's a really cool knife. Man, it made me feel awesome. It's got a great point on it. It holds an edge really well. I haven't sharpened it in some time, but I've kept it really clean, which is, impressive for me because I'm pretty bad about those kinds of things. So there's that. I also wore this on my belt for a while, but I definitely wore it at events for Society for Creative Anachronism, thinking I was pretty dang cool with my, recreation of clothing and stuff. Yeah, I could sharpen it up. Thanks, Byron. You're really helpful, brother. Not going to let you distract this. So when I describe blades, so in Usurper, actually Nephi's dagger, what am I saying? Laconai's dagger, that's so funny. Laconai's dagger, y'all can laugh all you want, is mentioned several times, and it's actually really important the way the sheath works and the kind of dagger that it is. It's an obsidian dagger. It's you can imagine this knife, but his is got a bone pommel like this right here, just straight up bone, and then it's an obsidian dagger that comes out to about here. More like it's about 10 to 11 or 12 inches long or so. It's kind of important. Really sharp obsidian, boy, it gets really sharp, but you have to be really careful or it will lose its edge by breaking. But obsidian is, of course, very, very strong. Anyway, so I'm not a huge knife nerd, but I love my blades. And that's enough about my knives. No hat today. I hope you're all enjoying this shirt. I'll tell you a story about that shirt one day, maybe. Let's get to chapter 3 of Usurper. If you haven't read Laconai, don't worry. It's readily available online via ebook or print book. Okay, so what we just finished last time was that Lakonai and family and friends have been captured by the Jimana, or Jimana, however you want to say it. They are my version of Amazon tribe, but not in the way that many people would say or think that it would be. Um, we get more of their culture and their society as we go. But now we have chapter 3, and we're going to introduce a character that, if you've read Lakona, you know who this is. This is Simra. Simra is this singularly wonderful young woman who actually helped Lakonai not die from a winter sickness, which took his voice for some time, and other things. They fell in love. They had a very nice kiss besides a fire. And then Lakonai betrayed her by leaving her when he should have taken her along. He decided he'd make the choice for her and leave and not have her come along on what he thought was a suicide mission. She got pissed and went after him after some time. She realized that she had nothing waiting for her in her village. She had some very ugly people there, unpleasant people, that is, ugly personalities, branding her all kinds of terrible things. And to get away from that and to get away from what she knew was a dead-end life, she decided to go after Lakonai, give him a piece of her mind, and also to find her own destiny and fortune. So she wants to make a difference in the world, and off she goes. Now that is kind of a bigger objective. The early objective, or the kind of smaller objective, is find Lakonai and give him a piece of her mind. So this is her on the trail. It's called Chapter 3, On the Trail. Simra hadn't thought she would ever smell something worse than the awful swamps full of enslaved men and cruel overseers, but the stench of the dead seemed to fill the city. She kept to the shadows, a heavy skin over her head serving as a hood. She'd only just escaped from the roving bands of warriors last time they'd spotted her long hair. It seemed in this city of terror and wanton death, no woman was safe. Barbarity happened on every corner. She kept her face angled downward while still watching all around. She only had to get through Victor Plaza without being stopped, and she would finally be back to the house she had been living in for the last 2 weeks, and the small family that awaited her return, praying she had found food. Zyronilksa, which is the name of the city, was not as she had imagined. Walking down the hard road away from her village, trying to avoid drawing attention to herself, she had pictured entering the city and finding Lakonai after a brief search. That boy seemed to create trouble wherever he went, so she had half expected to need to rescue him. After almost a week on the road, carefully rationing her food and finding water at nearby streams, she had first smelled the awful swamps. Curious, she took the road that the other travelers on the road were avoiding, and followed it down. Before long, she wrapped a cloth around her face to block the smell. The huge swamp and brick fields at first stunned her. Then, watching the cruelty of the labor, she had fought the temptation to find a way to free the slaves. She returned to the main road quickly, appalled. I should have known what would be after that. Shouldn't a city have been a place of civilization, law, or at least cooperation? With so many people packed in a small space, the need for something to keep people happy and safe seemed like a necessity. Without that, people would leave, wouldn't they? Which had to explain why the city had been closed when she arrived. She had joined a large group of confused people setting up camp outside the north gate to the city. Rumors filtered through the groups of the city being under siege. Other rumors of an army of red-painted warriors seemed nonsensical, so Simra had dismissed them. One thing everyone agreed upon was that the king had been murdered. Sitting at a small fire with a group of women who had come to the city to sell bright-colored woven rugs, Simra had nearly fallen backward from her crouched position. She caught herself. Murdered? The king was murdered? Where have you been living, girl? Ella, the oldest of the women, said, laughing out loud enough to be heard over the city wall. The others joined in, except for Licha, who didn't say much. She used a long-handled cup to scoop hot water from the pot over the fire and pour the water into clay mugs. Knifed by one of his own servants, they're saying. Zabuna looked around the fire, eyes wide. I heard 4 servants or slaves got together and plotted, then killed the king right in front of his own daughter when they were out hunting. Oh, you do tell tales, Ella crowed. That's what I heard, Zabuna said. One of the guards told Liho over with the chickens and sheep. And they killed him? Simra asked. When did this happen? Lakonai couldn't have come to the city much before her. Was he somehow involved? If you've read the first book, yeah, Knives Out. Nice one, Jeanette. A few days ago, maybe more, Mala, the youngest of the rug weavers, said. The problem being that now we can't get in the city and sell our rugs. You mean we can't get into the city and you can't find a handsome city boy to take you to wife? Zabuna said, cackling. Mala stiffened and glared. Zabuna! She looked around the circle. I never... You're not the first, child, Ella said. I know of at least 5 girls who stole off to the city to find a man. You know the best part, though, Zabuna broke in. They say one of the assassins came back to the city, probably to kill the young princess. Simra stared. Who would do such a thing? They say he got away by jumping down the outside of the king's temple, then climbing the south wall and leaping off of it, Zabuna said. Can you believe it? Now, if you've read Laconia, you know what's going on. And that's all I'll say. Read Laconia. Those walls are 10 meters high, Leecha said. You can't jump off that without getting hurt, or worse. Then maybe he's dead over there, Zabuna said. Serves him right, she grinned. Right? It was another 2 days of providing short, simple answers to the questions the rug ladies asked her before the guards let people into the city. After hearing the story of the fleeing assassin, something told Simra she should keep her story to herself and not mention Laconia. She followed the women and the thick piles of rugs they carried on their heads through the city to a large open square in front of a temple. It was the same shape as the small altar her village had, but smoother, since the altar was fashioned of uncut stone. This is your first time to the city, isn't it? Ella said. Simra nodded, stunned at the huge number of people rushing by in a torrent. I know it's hard to imagine huge numbers of people around, given the state that we're in, but it's real in this book. Okay. Within seconds of entering the city, her teeth were coated with dust. She resolved to breathe through her nose, which made the smell worse. And yet people hurried past, seemingly oblivious to the smell and taste. Simra found herself taking shallow breaths in an attempt to keep from inhaling too much of the polluted air. Oh, you'll get used to it, Zabuna said with a loud laugh. The smell is awful, isn't it? How do people live like this? Simra watched a man limp by in tattered clothes that were nearly falling off his bony frame. How is there enough food for everyone? The same way there are enough rugs for everyone, Ella said. She and the other women were arranging their rugs on top of a worn one they had spread on the ground. Trade. People bring things in and citizens buy what they need. Leecha brushed Simra's arm gently. Do you have a place to go? Simra met the quiet girl's reddish-brown eyes. No, but I'm sure I can find something. You should stay with us, Leecha said. The city is not a good place for a lone woman. She took in the noisy chaos, and it seems worse now. How so? Simra forced herself to look quickly away from the tall, red-painted guards stationed right outside the gate to the temple. The men looked like devil spirits in flesh. He was what now? Zabuna's voice carried over the din of the densely packed street. Simra slipped closer to Zabuna and the woman she was talking to. The woman was short and round. She wore brightly colored woven robes. Heavy adornments hung from both ears, one of them long enough to brush her shoulders. Her face was painted in stripes of blue and green. It was a young man. The woman bent closer. People who saw him swear he was merely a boy, no older than your girl there. She pointed toward Simra. The soldiers who he fought at the south wall now, they're saying he was a huge, fierce warrior. The woman winked. But we know how men exaggerate. Zabuna turned to the others. A young man, and he fought his way out of the most powerful city in the land, all on his own. She laughed. He was alone? Simra's heart stopped. It had to be a coincidence that a young man her age had been involved in the king's assassination right at the same time Laconia had been in the city. When he escaped from the city, the woman said, but I heard he was one of 4 servants, the dog boys it was, who were involved. Simra's heart began to beat again. Laconia had been alone, and he was no dog boy, whatever that meant. Zabuna! Ella elbowed her way to Zabuna's side. Is your friend here interested in a rug today? Mala came around the other side of the piles of rugs and caught the attention of a passing man. He wore brightly colored clothes as well, which stood out in the crowds of people whose clothing seemed to consist entirely of rags. Simra wished the round woman would say more about the assassins, but Ella was holding an intricately patterned rug up in her face. Before long, the woman left, the rolled-up rug held under her arm. On the other end of the rugs, Mala seemed to talk to every man she saw who looked available. Leecha faithfully brought a rug to every man that Mala stopped, but none of the men seemed interested in anything beyond Mala's pretty face. The day passed slowly in the endless heat. The bright sun baked the dirt and smells into something heavy that Simra could taste. As the afternoon turned to evening, she caught something Ella was saying. A scar on his side, you say? Ella bent close. So is he dead out there or not? Chills, a scar is important. Chills splashed from Simra's scalp down her neck. Lakonai had a scar on his right side, below his rib cage. She didn't catch the rest of what the woman talking to Ella said. She stared at the side of Ella's face, willing the conversation to be over so she could get Ella's attention. What seemed a year later, the woman wandered away. Ella, what did the woman say? Ella, what did that woman say? What now? Ella flapped her rug toward the passing crowds. Brighten your room with a rug. Every house needs one. Simra clenched her fists. That woman! She said something about the assassin who escaped from the temple. Huh? Ella's smooth face, wreathed by long gray hair, twisted in confusion. Which woman? Oh, that. She shook her head. She said that the crazy one who jumped off the wall had a big scar on his side. Simra's heart rolled in her chest. Did she say what side? What side? What? Ella cocked her head. Girl, why are you so curious? Simra! Leech's hand touched Simra's arm. Are you okay? You look pale as a snowfall. Zabuna's eyes went wide. Are you trying to find the assassin? Her voice rose. Do you know him? Simra's heart sank. This wasn't good. She glanced up and down the road. A scar on his side. Lakonai. And that's the end of that chapter. Yes. So Simra is obviously out to find out what happened. If you've read Lakonai, you know Lakonai's role in all of the events that Simra's just now learning about. As far as Simra knew, Lakonai was out to find out who the people who had slain his village, but she had no idea that anybody other than just some random person was involved. And so all she knows about Lakonai is that he's a nice guy who's very attractive, and she really gets along very well. And they had a smooch, and she has feelings for him that she really wished that she didn't have. So that's it for today. That's chapter 3. I'll come back tomorrow for chapter 4. We'll come back and forth between Simra and Lakonai's storyline as we go. And hopefully one day, as we get through this book, we'll find them getting back together. Any questions or anything? Anything you want to ask or comments, like stuff you loved? I'm sorry, my voices aren't very good. I usually do voices when I'm... of course, I do voices when I do my own audiobooks, right? But I'm not prepared for that. The amount of preparation required for me to turn this into an audiobook will be pretty significant. I'll need to go through each chapter and highlight what each character's voice, and then try to figure out what their voice would sound like, considering their age, their lifestyle, what region of the area that they've come from, and stuff like that. So, the voices aren't polished here, but when I record the audiobook, they will be polished. So that's exciting. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you all. Wow, quite a few people joined in. That's so nice. Let me jump in and see who's here so I can say thank you. Let's see here. So James, what's up, James? Thanks for joining. Byron, Darcy, I hope you're doing well. Krista, hi, Krista, you're rad. Paula, hi, Paula. Jaden and Bex, hi, Bex, good to see you. Jaden, what's up, brother? And Eduardo, email. Espero que Inglaterra. You're in England, right, Eduardo? Yeah, anyway. I hope it's going well over there. I'm going to sign off. Thanks, guys. Take care.